Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, the Working Glass Podcast. We are the Blue Collar Ballers. I'm with the excellence of articulation, John Soroyce, and myself, the Armchair Architect, DJ Marcotte. Check us out on our Facebook page at Armchair Fantasy Football, on Twitter at Armchair FF Pod. I'm on Twitter at Armchair Kingpin. John is on Twitter at John2977. You can email us at armchairfb@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, armchair_fantasy_football. We're all over the place, John. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Podbean. You can find our videos on YouTube. We are currently live streaming on Twitch as we speak. And also you can find us on Facebook Live from time to time. Just search Armchair Fantasy Football. We're all over the place. John, you got some news for us today? Oh, by the way, I feel a little bit better.
Just going to ask. Oh, yeah, that's convincing.
Yeah, I will cough from time to time, but it's not constantly, and it is not coronavirus. Hashtag haven't been checked, but...
oh, yeah, I feel so confident
they wouldn't test me anyway if I asked them, but I do not have coronavirus-like symptoms, so I'm back in the cut, so to speak, and ready to break down some sleepers for Sleepers 2, John, our second Sleepers episode of this year. Sleepers 2, The Sleepover, the sequel. It's going to be really, really fun, and I think you guys might like the players that we have for you to break down and to get you ready for this year's fantasy football season that hopefully comes around right on schedule. John, what about news?
So the NFL on Tuesday said they are hoping to have the regular season schedule out no later than May 9th, and that it will aim for virtual programs for off-season activities. The league also announced its guidelines for draft rooms: no more than 10 people per room. It must be at least 6 feet apart. So this sounds like all signs point to a draft happening. And they also announced that they are planning a normal 16-game season with a full postseason in 2020, based on if everything goes as planned. And they also have officially expanded the postseason to 14 teams for the 2021 season. And each conference will now have a third wild card and only one team getting a first-round bye.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. I know recently in our league of record, we actually got rid of buys altogether. There's no free lunch anymore. And it seems like the NFL is moving toward that with this new setup for the offseason. I personally love it. The more teams, the better. We like to do some postseason, I should say. Some postseason leagues where it's kind of a postseason roto, so the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. So that sounds really good, and I'm kind of excited about just to see how the draft is going to go this year. I know my favorite phrase in the world, social distancing, seems to be a part of this year's NFL draft, and it will be baked into how that whole deal plays out. That being said, it sounds kind of cool, man. I can just think of the throwback to the old era where they're all on the phone calling in their picks, literally calling in their picks, and the old rotary phones and, the visors on and everything. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a throwback version of the NFL draft this year, because that's how it used to be, man. There's like 10 dudes in a room, and they made their picks, and it was pretty archaic, and I think that'd be kind of fun to see a little bit of throwback to that era, I think that bygone era.
It's a mix of that also with, the upgrade of video conferencing now and all that, so... My guess is they're going to have the players on the other end, live streaming. So it's going to bring a whole different element this year. But I do kind of like that nostalgic old draft thing. 80 people on the phone. Well, sorry, it won't be 80 people. It'll be no more than 10 in the room.
Well, yeah,
but they'll be on the phone making deals. And I think this draft is going to be a lot of splashes. I think there's still a lot baked in that we're waiting for on this draft. I can't wait. It's literally 3 weeks away.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm glad it's going on schedule, as scheduled. Right now, and John and I we're hardcore football all year long. We are fantasy football aficionados, and we focus on this all year long. So for us, I mean, John might be missing some daily stuff in basketball, but for the most part, we're not missing a beat here. We have our favorite sport supporting us when all the other sports can't, and we're pumped about it. And the next milestone, obviously, is the NFL draft, which is going to be outstanding.
Okay, you have anything to elaborate on the postseason, or?
No, like I said, the more the merrier. I love it. gets more teams in there, gets more players in there, makes it tougher, in my opinion. Less teams get a free ride. I'm not a big fan of the free ride to begin with. There ain't no such thing as far as I'm concerned. And hopefully maybe one day, John, they move to no bye weeks.
Yeah.
No byes.
There is a little bit of element of surprise this year because depending on how if activities still go on, let's say the OTAs are pushed back or whatever, it's going to be I think a difference of almost like a surprise this year because usually you see stuff on players, like training camps.
This could be like the holdout year where they were trying to make a deal in the CBA, and this year it just happened magnificently quick. But obviously several years back, it was right down to the wire. And it also it reminds me of the year where the refs were on strike. I think it could be an ugly season coming up, John, is what I'm trying to say.
There's a lot of element of surprise here. We don't know who's I know there's still some players working out, but we don't know how engaged they are. Just like the draft this year, they can't do the medical clearance like they can on most players through past years.
The draft is going to be, and that's one of the reasons the teams wanted the draft pushed back because they can't do the psychological evaluations and they can't do, this or that. But you know what? Everybody's on a level playing field, John. So what's the difference?
It's no worse than the past when they used to be on a level playing field. So that's what I'm
saying.
saying.
No team has an advantage because of this. So
that's why I kind of like it.
I love it.
So
it's a little more. There's some. I think what you're trying to say is there's more excitement to it. There's more of the unknown.
I love the unknown.
Yeah. More. It creates a lot more variables, obviously.
So we'll go on to next news. The Athletics' Ed Bouchette predicts that the Steelers will not extend Juju Smith-Schuster and will allow him to walk following the 2020 season.
Dude, Nostra DJ is on fire. Like, I just keep predicting stuff. And one of my sleepers today, guys, spoiler alert, is Deontay Johnson. That was before this news. Juju Smith-Schuster had the opportunity last year to show what he was made of. And I love Juju. He seems like a great guy. And he had every disadvantage going his way last year. But guys like Deontay Johnson showed up, and Juju really didn't, And I was very disappointed with that. Like I told you earlier, John, when we were discussing this earlier, it seemed like Juju was just happy with his 2 targets a game. He accepted his 2 targets a game with a smile. And I think, Pittsburgh saw maybe this kid's just happy to be here, and he's not that much of a competitor.
And Deontay...
Or as much as we thought. And I'm not saying that's the case, but he had an opportunity last year to show what kind of a leader he was and what kind of a big-time player he was, that he could perform despite those variables and those issues that the team had going on. And he didn't do it. And other guys did,
Well, look at Hopkins in his year. We had, I think it was Osweiler.
Yeah, and that wasn't a great year. You keep saying that. I think you need to look back. That was a trash year for
it was,
Hopkins. He did not.
But what I'm saying is he still put up decent numbers. Horrible for him.
It wasn't like Juju last year, but look at that year again. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, he had 987
receiving
yards,
good.
something like
yeah,
that.
But then he was out there with Tom Savage or whoever and played well. So I mean, it's just Brock Osweiler that he couldn't perform with.
Going by what you said in the past, most receivers, dominant receivers, I should say, or high caliber players like Kenny Golladay will perform no matter what, no matter the situation. The numbers could be even better with the starting quarterback. So, so let's move on from that news. But also in Steelers news, the Steelers are also expected to draft a running back in this year's draft, and James Conner is in the final year of his rookie contract.
This might be a spoiler alert for one of my busts next week when we do our bust episode. Yeah, dude, not a good sign for James Conner. I firmly believe that's the direction they might go, right?
Yeah, no, right? they're definitely they're assessing their whole backfield. They're not even sold on Jalen Samuels and all that. I've been reading.
Well, Jalen Samuels wasn't very good. That's the other problem. You know what I mean? He caught 50 passes and they were all like 2 yards apiece. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, there's a lot of. I think I look at James Conner, and again, Nostra DJ. I again, spoiler alert. I got James Conner as one of my not a huge bust, honestly, on our bust show next week, and this was before I heard this news, and this just solidifies it. James Conner, and I don't want to spoil too much because I have a whole breakdown of it, but James Conner is a good, solid backup in a nice he's James White, and he proved that. Now in 2018, and we'll talk about it next week, he looked like a lead workhorse back. And then last year he was exposed. A lot of guys were exposed when Ben Roethlisberger was taken out of the equation last year, John. and this is the result. You know?
Yeah, he dropped from 4.6, I believe, yards per carry
He
down
went
to 4.
He just 4 yards a carry.
Not to mention how many multiple games that he missed last year with nagging injuries.
Yeah.
So, Lions signed Geronimo Allison, former Green Bay Packers wide receiver, to a 1-year, $1 million contract.
Meh.
To me, it's meh.
Meh. The big thing for this is that does not hurt Kenny Golladay at all. It's a solid receiver ad. You know what I mean?
It's more for depth, I think.
Yeah. No, I think it's a nice little pickup.
It's an extra weapon for Stafford.
Yeah, it's just fine.
So, Kansas City Chiefs re-signed DeMarcus Robinson on a 1-year deal for $2.3 million. This kind of hurts Hardman, I think.
We'll talk about that in a second. Not my favorite ad or re-sign that I've seen so far this offseason, but I don't think it kills Hardman's upside. Trust me. And I think this is good for the team because obviously this guy stepped up, dude, when Tyreek Hill was out and injured and stuff like that. So they knew what he was made of, and just a good guy to have on the team, much like Geronimo Allison, just a solid hand. You know, I don't think he's gonna hurt anyone too bad.
No, I don't think
in terms of value.
Not Tyreek Hill.
No, and I don't think Hardman, but like I said, we'll talk about
Okay. Eagles pick up Alshon Jeffrey's 2020 option.
They had to.
Exactly.
Right?
If they wouldn't have, they would have taken a $26.1 million dead money hit.
Yeah, they tried to trade him. They picked up Wentz's option too, didn't they?
Ertz.
That's right, Ertz. Ertz a little different story for me. I mean, he's a great, and Jeffrey's a great player too, but always hurt. They'll be moving on from him as soon as they can fiscally. You know, right now it just wouldn't be fiscally responsible.
So that's all we got for news. News was kind of short and sweet, but it was also 2 NFL, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, this was a slow week. I actually tweeted out, you might have seen it, NFL, please do something right now, because I'm dying here.
It's gotten quiet.
I'm dying here.
But the regular season schedule
Hit my mic.
will come out soon, so that's going to be very
that'll May something.
May 9th, it's supposed to be out by.
Next thing is the draft, so.
It's out a week later, but with circumstances, like they said, I think they're trying to put it all together, but looking forward to both the draft as well as the schedule.
Cool. So, Sleepers 2, John, the Sleepover, our second Sleepers episode of this year. So, these are guys that were looking for late round gems, basically. I look at guys in the 8th round or later that might be giving me a big swing around on their value and might be worth a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick value at the end of the day when the season's over. So I'm loving this episode. I want to ensure the listeners that we are not just about providing you guys with great content, but with new content as well. We could sit here and talk about the same sleepers over and over again, but we want to mix it up as much as possible, right, John?
Yes.
So with that being said, just a quick recap of the sleepers on our first sleeper episode. John had Matt Stafford, Kareem Hunt, Preston Williams, and Noah Fant. How you feeling about those right now, John? Still pretty good?
Kareem Hunt still is a wild card, but I think where he stands a good chance to be a solid value for where he's at.
Yeah, I think these were back in January, so they were early.
Really?
Sleepers.
Was that long ago?
It might have been February, but
okay.
it was early in the year. For me, I presented the cases for Deebo Samuel, Taysom Hill, Matt Breida. Thanks, San Fran, for killing my soul. And Jonnu Smith. So free agency might have wiped out a couple of the hopes there for Taysom Hill and Matt Breida, but I'm still strong on the Deebo and Jonnu Smith train.
Not the Nostra DJ called the Jonnu Smith. You said that I didn't think Delaney Walker would be cut. I thought Jonnu might just take over the reins, but he was just full out cut, which just when you sent me the text that day, you're like, Jonnu Smith time.
Oh, yeah. He'll be all over my all breakout team. The episode we'll do, I think it's due in June. We do the all breakout teams, and he'll be on it, I'm pretty sure. So I'm still excited about Deebo and Jonnu. But this is the sequel, John, and we're recasting from top to bottom. I personally had a lot of fun doing research on these guys. So without further ado, let's get right down to it with your first sleeper for Sleepers 2, The Sleepover. So Rice, take it away.
Okay, Sleepers 2, Sleepover. So my first one is my favorite one out of the 3, just to be honest.
I always ascend. I start with my... I love all these guys.
I don't know. I just drooling over this guy.
All right.
Darius Slayton is my sleeper. Rookie last year. Went under the radar with most people, but he played 14 games last year, started 9. 83 targets for 48 receptions for 740 yards and 8 TDs. I did not know he had 8 TDs.
Yeah, he had a good year, man.
He had 12.6 fantasy points per game, 8 games of double-digit points. Let me repeat that. 8 games out of 9 started.
I was going to say, how many did he start? So that's a great number right
yes.
there. Now, continue.
Okay, 15.4 yards per reception. He was 95th percentile for 40-yard dash and catch radius. Last year, he had 59% of the team's targets.
Really?
Yes. I know. I had to look that up.
I might have to myth bust that. I don't know.
He was second on the team with targets with 84. I think Golden Tate had 86. I could be wrong. I know he was second, though. I did look that up. And he also had the third highest target share on team as a rookie.
Okay. Ever?
No, as a rookie last year. Last year.
As a rookie. Okay, I got
So I think Slayton can only improve on this, especially where he was first year with a first-year quarterback after 3 games, I believe, when Daniel Jones popped in. Daniel Jones had a decent season. I'm not saying great, a lot of fumbles, but his passing was somewhat decent. 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. You had them.
Wow, you're forgetting something.
Well, 20 fumbles?
The 18 fumbles. I know you love to just sneak right by there,
but
they do exist. Nice try.
I'm hoping he cuts that in half, so let's say 10 fumbles.
Yeah.
But with that optimism of Daniel Jones improving, them picking up, I think they go offensive line with their first pick overall, but that would tremendously help Slayton as well as it will help Jones, but it helps Jones to throw the ball. But I can see Slayton getting about 70 receptions for about 1,000 yards next season and staying in that 8 to 10 range for touchdowns.
Yeah, so I don't have a percentage for Slayton for targets. It seemed like the biggest target getters, I guess, were at tight end, Evan Ingram, 68, Caden Smith, 42 targets. And then the receivers were all right in line, John. 85 for Shepard, 85 for Tate, 83 for Slayton. But down the stretch, he seemed to I don't know, it bounced back and forth a lot, but yeah, he definitely was getting out-targeted once Shepard and Tate came in. But when Tate was out, when Shepard was out, they did miss time, both of them. Slayton auditioned really well. He had he had upwards of 14 targets. That was in week 10. I like this kid a lot. I think he's going to need an injury to Shepard or Tate. Tate's a little long in the tooth, though. He's not getting any younger. I could see it happening. But this is it frustrates me even as a Cowboys fan when people sit here and say this isn't a talented offense. This is a really talented offense. They just don't have that Odell Beckham big name receiver or George Kittle big name tight end. They just have a lot of really good pass catchers. Ingram, Caden Smith, like I said, showed well. And, of course, Cody Latimer wasn't even that bad either. But Slayton, Tate, and Shepard being the class of the wide receivers on that team, I'm just concerned that Dr. Jones can make it happen with all 3 of them. I think he can support 2 of them, and I think at times Slayton will be one of those guys. I just worry about consistency.
I think with Slayton, though, I think what's going to happen is what I'm seeing from the stats and what I'm seeing from, watching some of the, games and stuff. I think Slayton turns in that Odell Beckham role. I'm not saying he's going to have 100 targets. He's not that kind of caliber player.
He had 83 last year, John, in a season where he didn't really pick up steam until week 8, maybe?
Yes. So he's
week 6?
He's early. They have an early bond, I should say, him and Jones, so that only helps.
He didn't even play the first 2 games.
Exactly. So this kid just got better with time, and adding a good offensive lineman to block for Daniel Jones. Now you have Saquon Barkley back involved, who didn't play.
100% healthy.
100% healthy.
Yeah.
They're going to take these shots downfield at 15.4 yards per reception.
Yeah.
That's really good high number.
Yeah.
He's their deep threat, I think. I think Tate will be there over across the middle.
So I like Slayton in the same way I like my guy that's coming up here. I like the fact that Slayton is a playmaker, dude. He's a big play waiting to happen. That's what I like about him, and those are the type of guys that you like to have in fantasy football. I don't know that he's going to get a big enough piece of the pie, John, in New York, but at the same time, dude, I could easily see at the end of the season him being the number 1 receiver on that team. I could see it happening. I wouldn't bet my last buck on it, but I could see it happening because he is a playmaker, and I think Daniel Jones can look at that guy as somebody that when he needs him most is going to make the big play happen. And he showed signs of that last year. My first guy, John, is very similar in that way, even more so, I think. Maybe the most electric player in the league. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. He just needs opportunity. That's Mecole Hardman. His ADP currently, John, is at 103. Sets a 5th pick in the 9th round. I wish I had a crystal ball, and maybe I do sometimes, and could tell you whether or not Sammy Watkins will be on the roster come week 1, John. We haven't heard much from him since the Super Bowl, but he has had some tweets indicating that maybe he's not coming back. And then, he's owed some money too, so Kansas City might cut him. That's a possibility as well, but we don't know yet. If you put a gun to my head, and I would say that he's not on this roster week 1. He did say prior to the Super Bowl, if Kansas City won, he would consider walking away. So a lot of my excitement over Mecole Hardman, John, is the potential for him to be the sole heir to the number 2 role in Kansas City. But I can assure you it's not exclusive to just that. There's a lot I like about this second-year wide receiver out of Georgia, so let's get started, brother. Let's start with the obvious. Speed. You want to talk about speed, bro? 99th percentile speed score. That means only 1% of guys are faster than him. 40 time, 4.33. 75th percentile speed score, 75th percentile agility score. Hardman had two of the top 10 fantasy plays in the league. The top 10 fastest, I should say. One play was 83 yards at 21.74 miles per hour. Think about that. The other one was a 63-yard catch at 21.87 miles per hour. It shouldn't surprise our listeners that both of those ended up in a touchdown. One of the great aspects of Hardman is that absolutely any time he has the ball thrown to him, there's a legitimate chance at a touchdown. No joke. He doesn't need air yards. You know why? Because he gets foot yards. Let's talk about yards per target. 13.1 yards per target, John. Guess what Michael Thomas was? Just take a guess. Throw something at me.
14.
9.3. 9.3 yards per target. Michael Thomas dialed in for in 2019, the number 1 overall receiver. Julio, 8.9. DeAndre Hopkins, 7.8. Oh, Tyreek Hill, 9.7. Mecole Hardman was at 13.1, dude. Yards per reception, 20.7, John. 20.7 yards per reception, the best in the league. Just for fun, Hardman caught 26 balls on 41 targets. Let's say he doubles that, and I think that he will, the target count. That's 1,076 yards on just 52 receptions, John. What's one of my favorite stats? Yards after the catch. There you go. 11.2 yak. Every time this guy gets the ball, he gets you 11 more yards. Think about that. That's a playmaker right there. Guess what else he does, folks? He returns kicks, too. He can get you touchdowns that way, if he wants. As a matter of fact, this may surprise you, but Hardman had the longest kick return in 2019, John. 104 yards. The field's only 100.
End zone to end zone.
How many guys would fair catch in the end zone? Nope. Not Mecole Hardman. He just takes it to the house faster than your car could. Hardman is just straight up exciting. He carves out a similar role to Tyreek Hill. Understood. They're even the same size, about 5'10", 180, 185 apiece. But that works in this offense.
So, does Hardman, does he earn the name the Leopard? So you have the cheetah and the leopard?
Maybe. But keep in mind, John, that Hardman has played, may have played in all 16 games. He only started 5. He had 6 games with double-digit PPR points, and he only started 5 games. He's electrifying, and I like his chances to carve out a bigger role this season in his sophomore year. And if Watkins is gone, John, sky's the limit. He might literally take flight.
Oh,
he's fast enough.
He easily could. He could Boeing 757. He definitely could take the number 2 role if Watkins disappeared. Well, let me rephrase that. Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and then Hardman. Hardman would be more the third option here.
Right.
But he definitely could take that third option away from Watkins. That'd be the best news to hear if you hear Watkins retires or steps away or decides not to play. Hardman last year, like you said, only started 5 games?
Yeah, and he had 6 double-digit PPR performances.
Him in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, the kid, like you said, he's electrifying.
Right.
He just finds a way to get into more space. He makes things happen when he gets the ball, And it's kind of like Tyreek Hill before he became a wide receiver, a punt returner. You get those opportunities, that then you're just going to have more chances to like develop, I guess the best way to put it. So
unlike Juju Smith-Schuster, anytime McCole Hardman was put on stage, regardless of the situation, he showed you what he was all about. And that's an elite electric talent.
Hardman also played with I'm trying to think who the backup quarterback was when Mahomes was out too.
He did, yeah.
Let's not forget that as well. So it skews the stats a little bit.
Yeah, yep.
I don't care
I
what
think it was
anybody
2
says.
games, but
2 games is 2 games.
Yeah, definitely. So that's I love it. Have I sold you on McCole Hardman? Are you getting excited about
I liked
him?
McCole Hardman before, but this opened eyes more when you kind of start seeing those yak numbers and those yards after the. I'm not just yards after the catch, but you know what I'm saying.
And that's what this podcast is all about, guys. We're all about opening your eyes and let you peek into our minds and how we look at things and how we figure out the guys that are going to be the next best players, not the guys that are anybody can pick Christian McCaffrey with the number 1 overall pick. It's the guys you're getting in the mid to late rounds that are going to win you your fantasy championship, right, John?
Correct. So my next guy, there's going to be a little bit of probably pushback from this.
Is it going to be cringeworthy?
It's cringeworthy for you, I think.
Okay.
So it's Darrell Henderson, but this has a few, what should I say, circumstances tied to it. Todd Gurley's now with Atlanta. I think that Henderson here has a chance to be the starting back that does have some competition with Malcolm Brown, or they could add somebody in the draft, as always speak. Not much to go on for stats for Mr. Junior last year, as he only had 39 attempts for 147 yards, 3.8 yard average. He started 0 games. He had 4 receptions for 37 yards. And he was a measly 1.4 fantasy points
selling
per
this
game.
guy as a sleeper.
But I'm selling him as a sleeper based on this. Let's say they make some upgrades at offensive line in the draft, or even one. They were the 26th worst offensive line in the league. If they even improved it like 19 or 20, there's still improvements here for Henderson. This is where I'm going to start telling you about Henderson. So Henderson at Memphis, his junior year, not even his senior year.
I don't think John did show prep today.
Yes, folks. I did. 214 attempts for 1,909 rushing yards. He had 19 receptions for 295 yards for a 15.5 yard average. His average rushing attempt was 8.9. 22 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving, 25 total scrimmage touchdowns. And you don't think this kid's talented?
I think he's a great college player.
Well, that's where we hope it translates. He was also at a 4.4 940. He was 80th percentile in the 40-yard dash. He was 67th percentile on his bench press, which he shows strength there. He's 5'8", 208 pounds. But his yards per carry in college, I know it's college, but was 98th percentile. His SPARQ score was 65th percentile. So there's room definitely here. Someone's got to be the starting back for the LA Rams. And I think it's going to be Darrell Henderson over Malcolm Brown in the end. They draft him for a purpose. I'm not saying for him to be like an elite back like Elliott, but they drafted him with a purpose. They got scared with Gurley. Now they dropped Gurley like a bad habit. And I think you can get Darrell Henderson at a bargain.
I think you can too, because I don't think he's going to be very good.
See, this is why
I'm not a believer. 3.8 yards per carry, just not going to cut the mustard. I don't like the fact that he didn't catch a lot of passes in college. John, you mentioned his college numbers. Didn't really appear to be much of a passing back in college. He had an opportunity last year to kind of solidify himself as the heir apparent to Gurley, and he just didn't do it. I mean, I'm not a big believer in him. Yards after the catch per attempt, 1.6. I don't know. I look at his numbers and I don't get excited. And I think Malcolm Brown might be better. And I also happen to think they're going to add a running back in the draft as well. So we'll see how that shakes out.
We'll see how it shakes out. So
I just don't like him. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just not a big fan.
Okay, who's your second one?
I'm sorry, John.
I knew you were giving me pushback on Texas, and you were like, really? So it's all good. That's not hurt my feelings.
My next guy, as I alluded to earlier, John, is Deontay Johnson. His ADP currently is at 134. That's round 11, pick 5, if you're bad at math. That's a steal. That's pretty much getting him for free. In 12 games, he caught 59 passes on 92 targets for 680 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also had a score on a return in special teams, John. 11.5 yards per reception, 5th highest in the league in broken tackles. The best trait I saw with Johnson, though, was this, John. His availability to create separation. Ranked number 1 in the league in target separation. Number 1. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, what this stat represents is the average yards of separation between the receiver and the closest defensive back at the moment of the pass target arrives. That's according to Player Profiler, one of my favorite resources. Ranked number 12 in cushion, John, which is the cushion afforded to the receiver by his assigned defender on each route, also according to Player Profiler. Deontay Johnson simply creates separation, John, and that's important in the league and more important in fantasy football. Gave you 6 double-digit performances in PPR in 12 games started, all with Mason Rudolph and Deputy Duck Hodges throwing the ball to him. You know who didn't do that, John? Juju Smith-Schuster. Am I saying Johnson is better than Juju? It's actually a question I've been asking myself a lot over the last several days. Frankly, I don't think so. But I could see where an argument could be made. Johnson produced under conditions that Juju could not. And that was the horrible quarterback play from Big Ben's 2 horrible backups. You want more? You ready for more? I got more for Deontay Johnson. I dug a little deeper, and I think Deontay shares some similarities with a former Pittsburgh wide receiver.
AB.
Antonio Brown. Hear me out here. Deontay Johnson, 5'10", 183. Antonio Brown, 5'10", 186. Deontay Johnson, 4.53 40. Antonio, 4.56 40. Deontay Johnson, 7.09 three-cone drill. Antonio Brown, 6.98 three-cone drill. 20-yard shuttle, 4.45 for Johnson. Antonio Brown, 4.18. Vertical, 33.5 for Deontay Johnson. Vertical, 33.5 for Antonio Brown. You can keep going right down the combine line, John, and they measured nearly identical or at least comparable in every single category. Johnson was actually drafted 3 rounds earlier in 2019 as a 3rd rounder than Brown was in 2010 as a 6th rounder. You know where their similarities end, John? If you compare their rookie seasons, Johnson caught 43 more balls for 513 more yards and 5 touchdowns to Brown's 0. All of that without Ben Roethlisberger. I thought 5 touchdowns on 59 receptions seemed like a little pretty good scenario there, pretty good ratio. So I looked at it compared to every top wide receiver in the 2019 rankings. Johnson caught a touchdown for every 11.8 passes thrown to him. Michael Thomas, you want to guess him? Every 16.5. Julio Jones, every 16.5. DeAndre Hopkins, every 14.8. Devontae Adams, every 16.6. And that's just scratching the surface. Johnson caught touchdowns at a higher rate than all of those guys. Think about that. Those are the best of the best. Am I saying Deontay Johnson is better than Juju and AB and all the players I just mentioned? No. What I am saying is that while A.J. Brown got all the flashbulbs, Deontay Johnson may have had a more impressive rookie campaign. What I am saying is that he's an electric possession type receiver, and what I am saying is this kid is a real player in this league, and he'll be a steal in fantasy football drafts at an offensive 11th round ADP. How dare you people be drafting him in the 11th round? This kid is going to, I think, produce 4th round value at worst this season. I think Deontay Johnson, he almost made my breakout list, but he wasn't really productive enough last year. He might be the king of my sleeper list this year.
He was one of those guys last year that went completely under the radar because of, like you said, Deputy Duck and then
and now they're
Mason
already
Rudolph.
like, we're moving on from Juju, basically. They basically said we're not re-signing him. So what does that mean? They might just focus on Deontay this year
and James
as
Washington.
the number 1.
Well, they still have Washington.
They do. I think Juju's still going to be in the mix, but I think Johnson's got a good chance of being the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh.
Oh, there's a good chance with Big Ben back.
And boy, how sweet that would be. I'll take him in the 11th round.
Well, you know what's also going to help with that? What's one thing they lacked last year? The use of a tight end. McDonald never stayed healthy. They just never threw to the tight end.
Teams have to take Ebron seriously.
Yeah. Well, what shocks me is how 2 rookie quarterbacks barely threw the tight end. Most rookie quarterbacks do.
Because they were absolute trash. And the rows that grew from that concrete trash of those 2 guys, John, was Deontay Johnson.
But what do we always talk about? Receivers that are in horrible environments with horrible quarterbacks that smell like roses.
Imagine what this guy can do with Ben Roethlisberger.
No, you're talking 80. Let's say he has a somewhat decent season. Let's say 80 receptions for 1,200 yards. Oh, I'm crying. That's bad.
I'm telling you, folks, while everybody in your league is passing up on this guy, let him drop and drop and drop and drop and drop to you, and he could help you win your league. Book it. All right, John, what do you got next for us?
So my last and final one, and I know you love this guy right out of college, but nagging injuries last year. But I think things are going to change for the better here for this guy.
Are we breaking out the old PlayStation here?
No.
No? Okay, sorry.
Paris Campbell.
Oh, I like Paris Campbell
Paris Campbell, his senior season. I'll just do his senior season. He had 90 receptions at Ohio State for 1,063 yards, 11.8 average, 12 TDs. Kid's good. Kid's really good. Ohio State has been known for producing decent wide receivers. I'm not saying electrifying, but not horrible either. Santonio Holmes, we've had plenty here. Michael Thomas, to name a few.
Santonio Holmes.
But Paris Campbell, with all his nagging injuries, if you want me to read his horrible stats from last year.
So can I just, you just made me think of something. Is Juju Smith-Schuster today's Santonio Holmes?
He may.
He may be.
He may be.
Food for thought.
Santonio Holmes started off great, and
then Ben. He broke up with Ben and went to the Jets and then trash.
His career was gone.
Moved from Super Bowl MVP to a nobody. Yep. Just a thought.
Maybe it is Big Ben.
He's the new Santonio Holmes, is Juju.
Paris Campbell with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, which he did not have a good season. He played in 7 games, 3 games started. 18 receptions for 24 targets, 127 yards, 1 TD. Small target size here, 5.3 yards per target. So hard to gauge here when you have a very small sample size. But this is what I like to see when you start looking at other... Excuse me, I apologize. Other things here. His ADP is 199, almost 200.
Yeah, that's undrafted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you take a guy who was 100th percentile for 40-yard dash out of college. 100th.
Yeah, I love this kid.
What do you think he ran for a 40?
4.34.
Very close. 4.31.
I can't remember.
Fast.
That's ridiculously fast.
He's not a short guy either.
That's faster than Hardman. Yeah,
exactly. 4.31. 6 foot, 205 pounds.
Both electric players.
Yeah, good size. Great size here. Speed score, 97th percentile, 117.2.
Yep.
His burst score, 97th percentile.
That's pretty good.
He's just not fast.
To have speed and burst score like that, what's that create, John? Yak, 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 yak. That's what it creates.
Correct.
All day long.
And he has not even untapped. He's only 20. Well, he's going to be 23 probably when the season starts, so he's still young. But the difference here is...
He's an old second-year guy, though. He might be younger than that, John.
He's 22 right now.
Wow. So he must have been a senior when he came out. I guess I forgot
His
that.
spark score was 94th percentile. So the kids got the ratings to back him up, but I think this is where it changes. Funches is gone, which Funches wasn't really irrelevant.
Yeah.
But the biggest change here, it's not what you think it is. It's not T.Y. Hilton come back. I think T.Y. Hilton...
to a degree, I think it could happen.
I think the fall of T.Y. Hilton starts this year.
I think for the record, I think it already started.
So you got...
I think he'll be better. I think T.Y. will be better this year than he was last year. But I smell what you're cooking right here, and I'll let you say it because I agree 100%
Brissett's gone. Welcome Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers loves a possession-type receiver. Hilton is not your type of possession receiver. He stretches the field more. I'm not saying he doesn't catch stuff on the slot, but Paris Campbell fits this type of possession slot receiver. Add Phillip Rivers to this mix. Paris Campbell with Ebron gone, Funchess gone.
I was going to say there's abandoned targets. There.
Plenty of abandoned targets, not as many as you think, because you got to remember you still have other people involved. But I think if you're taking Brissett out, you're adding somebody like a Phillip Rivers. Yeah, Rivers will throw down the field. He will take his shots, but I see Paris Campbell becoming more that slot/possession receiver, kind of like Keenan Allen is.
I agree.
For Rivers.
Yeah,
and look what Keenan Allen did with Rivers. I'm not saying expect that his first year.
Keenan Allen's a little bit bigger. He's 6'2", 211. But Campbell's not much smaller than him, 6 foot 205. And he's that same. And what does Keenan Allen do that Paris Campbell does, or at least as displayed?
He's faster. He's all faster.
In college. And it's yak. It's yards after the catch. These guys, you get them the ball in space, and they make it happen. And that's the type of guy that Rivers really focuses in on. That's why Allen was always going to be more productive than Mike Williams with Phillip Rivers there. And that's the type of guy that Paris Campbell is. Is there an element of Frank Reich making him prove it because he was a rookie? I mean, rookies don't typically come in and perform and get a big share of the pie in Indy. I think Naheem Hines probably got as big of a share as you're going to get as a rookie, and that was still table scraps. So there could be an element of that to it. I loved Paris Campbell's outlook this year, especially with Rivers there. He has a good offseason, John, and I think the sky's the limit for this kid. I love this guy.
He's got to stay healthy, too. He had a lot of nagging injuries last year.
Yeah. But that's anybody.
That's anybody. You don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hoping he can come out here, take that opportunity. If he stays healthy, he has a chance to easily be... You got to solidify T.Y. Hilton as the number one receiver until further notice, and then it goes... I would say Paris Campbell has a chance to be the number 2 here. I know Zach Pascal took it last year, but
again, I don't. Yeah.
It's different quarterback situation.
He's not the talent Campbell is.
Exactly.
He just isn't. Like I've always said, what do I say? The cream rises to the top, baby.
All
right, my next one, John. I think you're gonna like this, and you might be a little bit surprised by it, but it's a guy that we affectionately call Gus Bus, Gus Edwards. His ADP is 204. That's a
that high.
Yeah. So that's round 14, pick 3. 6'1", 238. Edwards is heading into his third season. Finished third in 2019 in yards per attempt with 5.3. Ranked third lowest in TLOS at 2.61, which measures time behind the line of scrimmage. Baltimore is a third overall ranked offensive line in the NFL. Drilling down a little bit further, they also ranked third in adjusted line yards, third in RB yards, and third in stuff percentage, which is percentage of carries by running backs that are stopped at or before the line of scrimmage. Good offensive line there. Second in second level yards, which is average yards per carry that come 5 to 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. 11th in open field yards for running backs, which is the average yards per carry that come more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. So those are all great offensive line stats, which I think you need to look at whenever you're looking at running backs, especially if you're making a decision between one guy and the other. Ranked third in success rate, 56%. This stat, 40% of needed yards on first down, 60% of needed yards on second down, or 100% of needed yards on third or fourth down. A running back above 50%, John, is very consistent. Below 40% is very inconsistent. Gus Edwards clocks in at 56%. Edwards ranked 8th in DVOA, which basically is comparing success on each play to the league average based on a number of variables, including down and distance, location on the field, current score gap, quarter, and opponent quality. Ladies and gentlemen, plain and simple, when you look at the stats, Gus Edwards is really, really good. As you also know, I happen to think that Mark Ingram is primed for a breakdown this season, and I believe Gus Edwards is a beneficiary of that, if not maybe a cause of it. Remember, Baltimore changes top backs every season. We've talked about this when I brought up Mark Ingram. Only one player since Ray Rice has been the top running back for Baltimore for consecutive seasons, and it was Alex Collins. And that almost wasn't because someone almost surpassed him in 2018. Guess who that was, John? Gus Bus. And he was working on doing the same thing again in 2019, out-carrying Ingram in the final 3 games. Baltimore loves Gus Edwards. I love the upside of Gus Bus this year, especially in an ADP that is lower than Naheem Hines, Justice Hill, Boston Scott, and Ito freaking Smith, and countless others that he completely outperformed and will completely outperform. He even has value, John, if Ingram is healthy and relevant, and a potential league winner if he takes the lead role in the most run-heavy offense in the league. I think he's got a great chance of doing just that. I really like Gus Bus this year, John. What do you think?
I like Gus Bus. I guess the question I got to ask you here, do you think the retirement of Marshall Yanda is going to play a huge role in this? You're talking about 8-time Pro Bowl guard. That's the question I have. Or do you think, because of the picks they have, they're going to replace that position.
I think it'll play a role in the performance of the offensive line, but this offensive line is so good, John. Much like Dallas, even a piece like Travis Frederick taken out of the equation, they're still that good of an offensive line. And I look at Baltimore as the same class of offensive line. I'm telling you, dude, Mark Ingram gets hurt. Gus Bus could be a league winner. He probably won't be next year because they never have two backs, the same top back Ingram 2 years in a row. But it ain't Justice Hill. Justice Hill, it appears to be a complimentary piece. They love Gus Bus, and I could see him taking the lead role.
Gus Bus had he was the number 2 the whole time. You saw it, or they changed the pace back. It wasn't Justice Hill. Justice Hill has the numbers, but I think he's got to earn his role more, and Gus Bus proved that he was the second. But the one thing I do like is Ingram isn't getting any younger.
No, he's 33.
32 or 33.
Yep.
So here's a perfect chance. Like you said, all it's going to take is a 2-week injury, like a high ankle sprain for Ingram, and Gus Bus can take the reins.
Bam.
Yeah.
And that's how many times have we seen that in the NFL?
And I'm not
over and over.
I'm not even seeing a torn ACL. I'm not wishing the guy that.
Right, but he could have, I don't know, turf toe and be out for a few weeks.
But if he misses,
turf toe's probably
if
a bad
he misses more
too.
than 2 weeks, Gus Bus can keep this job going forward, because teams have to respect Lamar Jackson now. I mean, if you haven't watched a Lamar Jackson game last year, shame on anybody, because his fakes.
I don't know how that's even possible.
Yeah, his fakes are like, he does the best fakes of a handoff to the running back. Like, I thought there was times that Ingram or Gus Bus had it and Jackson had it.
Right.
But teams, if they don't respect that, that's when the Ingram or Gus Bus are like burning these teams on the ground.
And even with Ingram out there, we saw it, John, down the stretch last year. Edwards performed well and at times out-carried Mark Ingram. So what does that tell you? They like this guy a lot.
It's the changing of the reins, though, too.
It could very well be.
Ingram, from what I saw last year, his attempts were from what he was on when he was with New Orleans. He's become more of a situational player for Baltimore. He's still their primary back.
He is.
They don't want to beat him into the ground. There was many games that he only had 11 or 12 attempts.
Yeah.
So it's become almost a split backfield there. There's a chance that even with Ingram staying healthy, Gus can still be the number 1 here. He's a gem. You found a gem here.
Yeah, I think so.
Like you said, though, an injury will help him even more. But I still think he could be the RB1 this year on that team over Ingram.
Very well could be, and that's kind of. And again, guys, we're looking at we're looking at players that are in the late rounds. So it's not like, it's easy to tell you who's going to be good from rounds 1 through 4, and that's not even always accurate. It's the guys in the late rounds, those late round gems, that you have to look at scenarios like we did with Mecole Hardman and Deontay Johnson and Gus Edwards and Paris Campbell and not Darrell Henderson, but like we look at with those guys, and those guys are the ones that win you your leagues. Christian McCaffrey's not going to win you your league because somebody's drafted Ezekiel Elliott after him and Alvin Kamara after him. Everybody's got great players out of the first round, and sometimes you see a bust there, but it's those late rounds you have to look at. So I would encourage you guys to look at these players in the late rounds once draft season comes around, and we'll see where their stock is once that happens. But these guys are going to be really good, I think, and we'll find out this season.
Your late round gems. Look at last year, Lamar Jackson, most drafts, anywhere between the 11th and the 15th.
Yeah.
And the guy was the number 1.
Yeah, dude. The year before, I got Pat Mahomes in the double-digit rounds because of research like this. So pay attention to us, folks, on Twitch, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, pretty much every platform you can think of. We are there. We are here together. We're not hiding in our basements like all these other podcasts that are taping shows from their own separate locations. We're the blue-collar ballers. And continue to tune in with us, and we'll help you out for next season and have some fun while we're at it, right, John?
Oh yeah, we have a whole schedule out to ourselves that we got every week planned.
Oh yeah, we got the whole year mapped out, man. We don't mess around. We're legit.
Things have been hectic because of this coronavirus, but all I can say is keep your distance.
What's that? Never heard of it.
Keep your distance. Try to make it. Hopefully this all blows over soon and things go back to normal.
Step off.
So. We have a full year every week.
We're a year-round podcast, plenty of content and good content and diverse content. We're going to give you something different week to week. So continue to tune in, guys, to the Working Class Podcast, the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. We'll be twitching some more here, right? Twitching a little bit. So until next time.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.